Deputy Speaker, there is much to welcome in this far-reaching bill. The tougher sentences for violent crime, for child murderers and sex offenders, greater efforts to remove knives and weapons from our streets, the inclusion of Kay's law to provide greater protection to those who find the bravery to speak up against violence and sexual offences in their own homes. I could go on, but with the time I have, I will focus on an issue that greatly affects my constituency, and that is the right to protest outside this place, in the heart of my constituency. The recent history for legislating protest outside of Parliament makes for interesting reading. Honourable members opposite who question the bill's impact on the freedoms of engaging in democratic protest may wish to cast their minds back to sections 132 to 138 of the 2005 Serious Organised Crime Act, where a Labour government prohibited protest within a kilometre of Parliament without prior agreement with the Metropolitan Police. Fortunately, the Conservative government repealed these restrictive clauses in 2011. Madam Deputy Speaker, if this weekend has taught us anything, it is that there is a huge difference between a peaceful vigil where people come together to express shared grief and outrage, and protests that take place day after day for weeks on end, which can occasionally bring unpleasant disruption to those living and working locally. Central London has seen changes in the way that protests are organised and their longevity. Protests are not always organised by specific groups. They are movements, often with different aims and objectives. They come to protest peacefully, some, others may have the aim of causing disruption and even destruction. I believe passionately in the right to protest. It is one of the values we hold so dear in this country. The clauses in the bill do not restrict the right to lawful protest. What they do is bring static protest into line with the same provisions that already exist. I accept that some of the language in the bill could benefit from tightening up, and I'm sure that that will be done as the bill progresses. Much has been highlighted about the democratic and human right to protest, and I agree. But let's not forget the human rights of my constituents who live with over 500 protests or marches a year. I see a huge spike in my mailbag when Westminster plays host to a major protest. Constituents highlighting that a few cause them distress and loss of amenity. They do not question the right to protest, but do not accept becoming prisoners in their own home and the distress that often they feel from a small minority of protesters. Criminality is what this bill aims to prevent, and that is surely something everyone in this place wants to achieve.